There is no way around it. In order to be a great project manager, you need to be a great leader. And in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 ways on things you can do to improve your leadership skills. Have the motto, people first. Look, projects, yeah, they're about getting things done, but you can't get things done without people. Your project is all about your people. And so you need to have that mentality. It can get really easy to get caught up in your task and actually not even think about the people who are doing those tasks for you and say, hey, when are you getting this done? And just be so task oriented. You have to take a step back. As a leader, leaders always think about their people. So you now have to take into account, in order when you are looking at people first, is to really think about things other than tasks. What? But I'm running a project. My focus is all about tasks. No, it's not. It's about the people. Your subject matter experts are the one who are executing those tasks. So you need to focus on them. And how do you do that? The best way is through emotional intelligence. Now, what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is when you have the ability to really sense a room, sense what's going on with someone else, really pick up on the emotion that is happening behind the words, behind what's being said, behind what you're seeing. It's a sensing. Have you ever gone into a meeting room where it was in person and you can just feel whether it was a good vibe or a bad vibe? That's what we mean from an emotional intelligence. It's when you can read behind what people are saying. So get really good at reading the room, understand more techniques around around emotional intelligence. Really get to know your team as well by putting people first, understand who they are, really get to know more about them than just what it is that they do. Find out about their families. Again, really bring in that personal element. It really is going to help your team be connected, not only to you as a leader, but collectively as a team too. And when you have a connected team, things are much easier to execute, which is just going to help you on your project. Okay, since we're talking about leading, I'm going to be leading you down a path that you definitely want to go with me, and that is I have a guide for you that has 6 tips you must need to know in order to ensure your projects don't fail. I'm going to share with you a little later on in this video on how you can get your hands on that. Understand the stages of team dynamics. What? There's stages to teams? Oh my goodness, yes. So here's what's really interesting. There are 4 specific stages of team development. Some may say there's 5, but there's actually these very critical things that occur that happen over and over and over again. Good news is for you, in my course, Slay Project Management, I actually have a dedicated section completely on this that goes through it in uber detail and telling you how to deal with every single one. Now for you, what we're going to focus on is the most critical one that you're probably experiencing right now, which is storming. Storming is a phase and a stage in team dynamics. This is where people have stopped being polite, they've stopped being nice, having those social norms when you first started off the project, when you were forming. And now people are basically showing their true colors. Whether those are political colors, they're like, hey, I'm not liking what's going on. They're now speaking up. They may even try to derail what's going on because they don't agree with it now. They have this comfort level. So they're now just basically saying, hey, I really don't agree with this. They may even challenge you as a project manager and your ways of working. So this storming stage is a very important one to understand. Why? Because you cannot ignore it. And I know you've been on projects where the whole project was storming, like from start, well, maybe not start because there's always that forming stage, but maybe after that, it was like from that point on all the way to the end. And it's not fun. It's very draining. There's a lot of work and there's constant battles that you have to constantly take care of. And it really impacts the quality of the project that you're doing, but not only that, the team dynamics that you're having. You can either have fun at work or you can work a lot and have it be a drudgery. And if your project isn't storming, then I promise you, everything that you're going through is just a drudgery because it is not a fun stage to be in. It's a stage that will always occur. So the key is, how do you deal with it? Well, it's probably something that most people don't like to do, and that is you have to confront it. Now, you don't confront it by yelling, screaming, and getting angry with it or whomever is creating all the storming that's going on in your project. You actually do it very succinctly, and you look at it from the perspective of it's just data. So how I like to do things is I actually introduce people to team dynamics at the beginning of the project when we have a kickoff. So they're very much aware of what those stages are. So now I've just done that introduction. So when we're in a particular stage, particularly storming, I just have to go, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to call out the elephant in the room. I really feel we're in storming stage. Do you remember that information I gave you? All within my Slate templates, because I pass that off to them. And I go, do you remember in those templates that I gave you, that information that we went through? I really feel we're going through this stage storming. Let's resolve our issue, let's put it on the table, and let's really figure out how we can move forward to the norming stage. That alone is gold, because you're not calling out a person per se, you're calling out a stage that everyone is in there experiencing, and you've already done that introduction at the beginning of your project. So understanding your team, the team dynamics and the stages that they go through, oh my goodness, it is a huge thing from a leadership perspective, because it's going to move people forward, really leading them to a successful outcome. And that's what leaders do. Get to know your team members. Now, I'm not just talking about their name or the tasks that their name is associated with. I'm talking about really getting to know them as who they are as individuals. So a great way to do that is in your meetings, particularly your core team meetings that you have on a regular basis, is pepper in a little bit of getting to know you type activities. Things that you can do is you can find out what inspires them. You can ask them what they feel are their greatest strengths. You can even do activities where other members tell that particular person what they feel their greatest strengths are. It's a real cool way for people to start to get to know each other, not only for you as the leader of this team to get to know them, but your other team members well, and it really brings about great bonding. Something that is only going to help your project again. And as a leader, that is your job. Your job is not to ensure just that your activity is delivered, but that the people, this journey that you're going on to bring it to fruition, is one that people are really excited about as well and feel connected in. And how do you do that? You do that by getting to know people. And that's something that really is going to help you in the long run. Set clear roles, responsibilities, and expectations. As a leader, people need to understand what is the guidelines and parameters that they can work within. Whether they acknowledge that or not, I promise you that's what people need. Because when things are really tough and busy, they need to know exactly what is it that you're expecting of them. And if you don't set up any expectation, or if you're not clear on roles and responsibilities, you will be disappointed. Other people will be disappointed. You will have more strife on your project because people will make assumptions. So as a leader, it is critical for you to set that from the beginning. And there's ways that you do that. You do that within your project charter. You set up those roles, responsibilities, expectations. You do it within your meetings. You introduce your meetings with rules of the meeting and your expectations along with your agenda. Again, that's expectations. So there's lots of things you can do that it's not just a one-shot deal where you go, hey, this is what I expect from you, but you integrate it daily into your workings, into your meetings, into your activities, so that everyone is very clear continuously on what it is that you expect of them, because that is what a leader does. Communicate the vision. What, Adriana, we're talking about projects. We're not talking about vision. Well, hold on, wait a minute. This gets missed all the time. This is the why you're doing the project. This is the vision that the organization has, and that they're bringing this project and making it a reality so that something that your project is delivering on is going to come to fruition. And you need to understand why you're doing that. I've been on lots of projects where that does not get explained. And when that doesn't get explained, people come up with their own justification, and sometimes it's completely wrong. Or they're just not connected to what's going on because they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, even though it may be the best reason in the world. And as a result, they don't think that what they're working on is of higher priority. So, which is of no fault of their own. So it's really important to communicate that vision, communicate the justification of why you're doing the project, the why. When you understand the why, you can get connected better to what it is that you're doing. And it's the leader's job to provide that information. Become a better listener. This is hard for me. It's hard for me not because I don't want to listen, it's because I have been in a role that I'm constantly leading, and I'm teaching like now with YouTube. And so I'm so used to people coming to me for answers, advice, direction, because those are the roles that I've constantly had for a very long time now, that I'm just used to going, okay, boom, 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 boom. And unfortunately, I see the answer too because of years of doing this. But being a really good listener is only going to help you, because I promise you this, even though I have tons of experience and I've been doing this for a long time, I don't have all the answers. And even though I think I may have the solution, there are times when I hear from somebody and I actually listen to what's going on, I'm going, my goodness, that's actually a better idea than I would have suggested. So being a better listener is not to say that if you are not a good listener, that it's all about you and your ego's taking over. That's not the case. It's just really being aware that you don't have to have all the answers. Listen to the team around you, because I promise you they have some insight and experience that you don't have that's only going to help. And so when you take that moment to listen around you, bring all that information in, and then disseminate that in order to make decisions, really makes for great leadership. People feel valued when they're listened to. And when people feel valued, they actually are going to really ensure that what they're working on is delivered in the highest quality possible way, because they're connected to it. Learn to set the tone. There is a saying that the tone is from the top, and we say that a lot in the corporate world. So what the tone is from the top is just that. The executive leadership, what it is that they're disseminating, their tone that they present to everyone who's underneath them, has a huge impact. So if the tone from the top is negative or is not following through on activities that are promised, or they say one thing and they expect everyone to do it, but then they're the complete opposite, it is a huge mess. So if you're going to lead and be a really good leader, then you have to set the right tone, and you have to practice what you preach. You have to hold yourself at that high standard, that tone, because that tone disseminates down. Think about it. When you know that someone doesn't necessarily have that tone, or they say, hey, do this, but then they do the opposite, are you going to hold true what they just said? Because their tone is like, look, doesn't matter what I say, it's not that important. So you just follow through on that as well. But if you had a leader who was very specific and had this tone of, no, we must do our highest quality all the time, and they exemplified that, you naturally get very motivated to actually hold yourself up to the same standard, because you can see the person is also doing it as well. So that tone is critical. So really be careful of the tone you set. Maintain a positive outlook. All right, you have to take a look at life from either through the lens of either the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. As a leader, particularly within projects or leader of people, there's a silver lining to everything. You really have to give hope to those that report underneath you, or that those that you are leading. And if you're negative, then you're not giving them any hope. And that positive outlook becomes really, really important, finding that silver lining in everything. So think about it. Think of times when you've been in scenarios and situations where someone's attitude was the glass is half full. It was more on the negative side. You know, that really had an impact on how you thought, the ideas that came to the table, or whether or not you even put energy and effort into things. You may even just given up. It happens. We've all done it. So as a leader, you have to recognize your outlook, your attitude, just like the tone at the top. As I said in the previous tip, your outlook is so important. So you need to have that positive outlook, whether you're feeling it or not. As a leader, that's your job, is to motivate those underneath you. So look at it through the lens of the glass is half full. Find that silver lining so you can give hope to those who are following you from a project standpoint, because you are the leader. And you will see a change in them, which will shift into a positive change for your project and the activities that you're executing on. Delegate and then trust. Okay. It's really hard for people to delegate. It's really hard for people to trust. It's super hard for people to delegate and trust. This is difficult. I haven't really come across anybody who is really good at delegating and trusting, because you really open yourself up to vulnerability, because you have to make sure you have a very solid team in front of you. But what happens if you don't delegate and you don't trust? Well, then you have individuals on your team who won't go ahead and be proactive. They're going to wait for every single instruction from you, their project manager, because you don't delegate and you don't trust them. So they're like, well, why bother being innovative? Why bother being proactive when Adriana is just going to tell me to do something else or not like the idea that I've given her, or whatever it may be. So as a leader, it's really important to know that you can't do it all. You're going to have to delegate. You're going to have to trust your team that they're going to do a good job on it. So how do you let go of that anxiousness of being able to delegate and have trust? Well, you have to set it up properly. What is it that you have to set up? You have to set up your project properly. So there's a couple of things. When you set up your project, you do it through your documentation, you do it through your project planning. You know, in fact, for those of you who take my SLAY project management course, I talk about this, the importance of the initiation and planning stage of your project. You have to get all that locked and loaded before you move forward and even start executing, even before you do your kickoff with your team members. You need to get really clear. So you got to get clear on, your scope, what's in, what's out, your milestones. That is really helpful. But something else that is even more powerful is you want to get your action plan, your work breakdown structure action plan that I have in SLAY, totally laid out for you. If you're interested, link is below this video, shameless plug. But you really want to get individuals to really think through all the high level stuff that they have to do from start to finish. If you have that laid out, then you now have the ability to delegate and trust very easily, because you just had a team that put in their insight, their thoughts, their accountability for tasks, for everything that's going to happen in the project from a high level perspective. And now they have this document to follow, and you're going to follow it along as well. So you're not worried whether they forgot something, because you've already documented it. And you use that document as a live document that gets updated continuously and gets added to, and you bring that into your meetings. And now delegating and trusting is super easy, because you're now managing and just following through on a documentation that everyone has access to. So delegating and trusting is huge from a leadership perspective, but you have to set it up. You cannot just in your mind think that they know what to do. You really have to lay it out for people, but once you do, you got to back off. And then you got to give people the tools, as I said, with that WBS and having all that documentation so that they know where they can go back to in order to course correct themselves. And then have faith that they're going to do a good job because you set it up that way. Focus on your communication skills. It's really important as a leader that you communicate succinctly and well, and you get to the point. You want to be able to communicate with your team when they're doing things well. You also want to be able to communicate when they're not doing well. I know, Adriana, why are you bringing that in? Because that's what a leader does. A leader just doesn't focus on the fun stuff and all the positive, good stuff. You got to look at it all. And sometimes there's some things that are messy that you have to take care of, and that's the leader's job. So really focus on that communication, because if you have really strong communication from day one with your project team, then it makes it easier for you to ensure that you are communicating with them. You also have to remember to over-communicate, because a lot of times what leaders do is they go, I said it once, they all know, I can now move on. But that's not the case. You need to over-communicate. Over-communicating ensures for those individuals who are not paying attention, particularly on virtual calls, particularly when the cameras are off and you know they're probably working on something else. We've all done that. You want to over-communicate to make sure that messaging comes through, because I promise you there will be someone who, even though you said it 5 times before over numerous meetings, they're finally hearing it for the first time. And that's okay, okay? There's distractions, there's many reasons why that happens. So just recognize that over-communicating is really helpful. I do have a video on communication. If you go to Adriana Girdler in the YouTube search bar and you put in Adriana Girdler communication, sorry about that, it will bring it up and it'll give you some more information around communication, because it is a topic on its own and it's something really critical when it comes to being a leader. Okay, now that you know how to improve your project leadership skills, I said I have something for you if you stay tuned, and it's right here. If you're a project manager and you're leading, you need to understand why projects are failing. And I have this for you free, my gift to you. How do you get it? It's under this video. There is a link for you to click on, so I recommend highly that you click on it. It is an amazing resource and tool. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Give this video a like. It tells YouTube we're doing a really good job allowing me to give you more great content. I also have for you this video over here, how to lead without authority, something that all project managers go through. So definitely check this one out next. On that note, see you at the next video. Thank you.